In the shadows of Colombia's quiet towns, one man would cast a darkness that would haunt a nation for decades. Luis Alfredo Garavito, known as La Bestia, earned a name that whispered terror, a figure whose crimes would shock the world. Behind a seemingly ordinary exterior, a man who sometimes appeared gentle, even caring, lay a relentless predator, a twisted mind that preyed on the most vulnerable. From the early 1980s through the 1990s, Garavito targeted children from impoverished neighborhoods, leaving a trail of suffering and fear in his wake. His methods were calculated, his cruelty systematic, and his deception chilling. While the details of his actions are harrowing, the story of Garavito is not just one of darkness, it is also a story of survival, investigation, and the tireless pursuit of justice. Tonight, we examine the life, crimes, and capture of Luis Garavito, Colombia's most notorious serial killer, and the legacy of fear he left behind. Luis Alfredo Garavito was born on January 25, 1957, in Colombia, into a turbulent and unstable household. His father was distant and often harsh, interacting with his children only to assign chores or deliver criticism. Garavito and his siblings frequently hid from him, learning early to navigate a world filled with tension and neglect. While his mother attempted to maintain some stability, the household was often marked by conflict, leaving lasting emotional scars on young Luis. School was no refuge, nicknamed Garabato for his glasses. He was teased and bullied by classmates, leaving him socially isolated. He struggled academically and retreated into solitude, a pattern that would intensify over time. Repeated family relocations during his childhood compounded this instability, creating a sense of disconnection from the world around him. Reports suggest that early traumatic experience also shaped his understanding of relationships and trust, further impacting his developing psyche. As Luis entered adolescence, troubling patterns began to emerge. He battled depression, anger, and deep feelings of inadequacy. He sought connections with peers and adults, but rejection and conflict reinforced his isolation. Early employment, from farm work to bakeries and street vending, offered glimpses of independence, but also frustration, leading him to alcohol as a coping mechanism. These formative experiences would feed the darker tendencies developing within him. By the late teens, the psychological profile of Garavito was already taking shape. He could appear sociable and even nurturing at times, yet he struggled with boundaries, control, and empathy. While the full horror of his later crimes lay years ahead, the early combination of trauma, neglect, and emotional instability provided a chilling glimpse into the mind that would become one of history's most notorious serial offenders. As Garavito entered adolescence, the challenges of his early life began to intensify. Moving with his family to new towns, he struggled to find stability or a sense of belonging. Reports indicate that he experienced further trauma and rejection, compounding feelings of anger and isolation. Social connections remained difficult. Peers often mocked or avoided him, and adult relationships were complicated by his volatile temperament and early encounters with alcohol. During these formative years, Garavito began exhibiting deeply concerning behaviors. He struggled with impulse control, aggression, and emotional regulation, often reacting violently when frustrated or challenged. Conflicts with family and neighbors became frequent, and his early attempts at forming relationships were marked by inappropriate and troubling actions toward younger children, a reflection of the darker tendencies beginning to emerge within him. Despite these red flags, Garavito showed moments of outward normalcy. He held temporary jobs, pursued casual relationships with women, and maintained connections with certain family members. Yet beneath this facade, he battled internal struggles, including depression, feelings of inadequacy, and a growing obsession with control. Reports suggest that exposure to traumatic experiences and early abuse may have shaped his distorted sense of empathy and morality, laying the psychological groundwork for the crime to come. By the late 1970s, Garavito was oscillating between fleeing normalcy and increasingly dangerous behavior. He attempted to seek help through psychiatric care, hospitalization, and religious involvement. Yet these interventions failed to address the core of his impulses. While the full extent of his violent crimes had not yet manifested, the adolescence of Luis Garavito foreshadowed the emergence of a profoundly disturbed individual, whose inner turmoil and unchecked impulses would eventually escalate into one of the most shocking criminal sprees in modern history. By the early 1980s, Garavito's troubling behaviors had intensified. While he maintained brief periods of ordinary life, working in shops, selling religious items, and forming temporary relationships, he also began targeting vulnerable children in his communities. Initially, these incidents involved harassment and inappropriate conduct, but over time, they escalated into violent abuse. Witnesses would later describe him as manipulative and charming on the surface, while hiding a dangerous predatory side that few recognized. Garavito's crimes became more methodical as he matured. He learned to approach children who were alone or from disadvantaged backgrounds, offering small gifts or chores as a means of gaining their trust. His actions were calculated, and he developed routines that allowed him to operate undetected for years. He kept detailed notes, recording information about his victims and their routines, demonstrating a chilling level of organization. These early crimes were a stark indicator of the danger he posed. Though authorities and those around him remained largely unaware of the full extent of his behavior. During this period, Garavito's mental health struggles continued. He experienced depression, psychotic episodes, and obsessive thoughts, and attempted psychiatric treatment on multiple occasions. Despite these interventions, his violent impulses persisted, and his patterns of abuse became increasingly severe. Psychological experts would later suggest that a combination of early childhood trauma, social isolation, and deep-seated personality disorders contributed to his escalation into murder. By the early 1990s, these warning signs had culminated into a tragic turning point. Garavito's actions escalated from abuse to systematic killing. The first confirmed murder marked the beginning of a spree that would shock Colombia and the world. The early crimes of Luis Garavito reveal a progression from troubling behavior to horrifying violence, illustrating how a combination of psychological factors and unchecked impulses can evolve into one of modern history's most prolific and disturbing criminal patterns. By the late 1990s, authorities in Colombia were facing an alarming reality. Children from disadvantaged communities had been disappearing at an unprecedented rate, and mass graves began to surface in several regions. Investigators initially suspected organized crime or even cult activity, as the scale and brutality of the crimes were shocking. But patterns soon emerged. Most victims were boys from poor backgrounds, and evidence suggested the work of a single, methodical perpetrator. Police began to piece together Garavito's movements and behaviors. Witness accounts and forensic clues, ranging from discarded personal items to repeated tools found at crime scenes, narrowed the search. While Garavito maintained the guise of an ordinary man, his calculated efforts to avoid suspicion eventually unraveled. Authorities discovered he had kept meticulous notes and records related to his victims, which provided critical insight into his methods and confirmed his involvement. The breakthrough came in April 1999. Garavito was apprehended after an attempted assault on a 12-year-old boy in Villavicencio. What initially seemed like an isolated case quickly connected him to the broader series of crimes. DNA evidence, eyewitness accounts, and the incriminating materials in his possession left little doubt about his responsibility for the horrific acts spanning years. Once in custody, Garavito confessed to numerous murders, describing his patterns of luring, assaulting, and killing his victims. Despite Colombia's strict sentencing limitations, he was handed the maximum possible sentence, which reflected the magnitude of his crimes. Psychological evaluations later revealed complex factors behind his behavior, including early childhood trauma, deep-seated personality disorders, and an obsessive fixation on control and domination. The investigation and capture of Luis Garavito ended one of the most tragic chapters in Colombian history, bringing a measure of closure to surviving families and victims. Yet the sheer scale of his crimes left a lasting impact, forcing Colombia to re-examine legal frameworks and the importance of protecting vulnerable populations from predators operating in the shadows. The story of Luis Garavito left an indelible mark on Colombia and the broader world. Known as one of the most prolific child murderers in modern history, his crimes forced a national reckoning with the vulnerability of children and the limitations of the legal system. While Colombian law restricted imprisonment to 40 years, the enormity of his crimes sparked debates about sentencing, child protection, and the adequacy of legal safeguards. New laws eventually increased maximum penalties, reflecting lessons learned from the tragedy. Psychologists and criminologists studying Garavito have sought to understand the factors that shaped such extreme behavior. Early childhood trauma, exposure to neglect and abuse, and social isolation appear to have played a significant role in the development of his antisocial tendencies. Experts note that while these factors may explain patterns of deviance, they cannot excuse the sheer scale of his crimes. His case highlights the importance of early intervention and a long-term consequence of unaddressed abuse. Beyond the legal and psychological analysis, Garavito's legacy is deeply personal for surviving victims and families. Stories of courage, escape, and resilience continue to emerge, emphasizing the strength required to survive encounters with such a predator. Memorials, awareness campaigns, and educational programs have since been developed in Colombia to prevent future tragedies, honoring the memory of those lost and offering support to those who endured unimaginable suffering. The case also serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance in protecting society's most vulnerable members. Garavito's crimes, though now behind bars, remain a chilling example of what can occur when abuse, neglect, and predatory behavior go unchecked. His life and actions continue to be studied, discussed, and remembered as a cautionary tale. A dark chapter that underscores both human cruelty and the need for social responsibility in safeguarding children. Luis Garavito's story is one of unimaginable darkness, a reminder of the dangers that can lurk unnoticed in the world around us. Known as the Beast, his crimes shocked Colombia and the world, leaving scars that remain with survivors and families to this day. While his time behind bars ensured he could no longer harm others, the scale of his actions forces us to reflect on the importance of vigilance, protection, and awareness in safeguarding the most vulnerable. His life also raises difficult questions about human psychology, trauma, and the complex factors that can shape someone into a predator. Garavito's story is not just a tale of horror, it is a cautionary lesson, urging society to recognize warning signs, support victims, and strive to prevent such tragedies in the future. If this story left an impact on you, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more journeys into the minds and mysteries of dark hearts. And as always, don't forget to look beyond the fog.